When you tell people you spent £500,000 on a car, they assume you just pop your card into the machine and 500k is taken out of your account. There's a famous saying, don't work for money, you make money work for you. And this works whether you're buying a Renault, Range Rover or a Revuelto. Today, I'm sitting with Jordan from RJ Stamford and we'll break down the exact method I use to purchase all of my cars, so you can avoid the mistakes I've made.
To go to a dealer and buy a car cash, I'd never do it again. Today, you're gonna find out exactly how I bought my Lamborghini Revuelto. So I'm with Jordan from RJ Stamford. How you doing? You well?
Self.
You'd have seen him before. We've done a finance video previously, talking about finance, but you have now financed my Lamborghini Revuelto.
I have, yes.
People think, well, if you finance a car, you don't really own it, and why are you financing a car? You can't obviously afford it if you're financing a car. And that is a lot of the comments that I will get and other people will get. When people buy cars, some people buy them outright. Other people will finance them. Other people will lease them and give them back at the end of the term. This sort of car is not a car that you can lease. You buy this car, it's a car that you buy. Let's break this down. Now, firstly, the reason I've financed this car is because I use my money in other things, as you've seen the property videos on the Yianni YouTube channel. There's no point in me tying up £558,000 in a car. I'd rather put down a deposit, pay a monthly payment, and then either at the end of the term, pay the car off with a balloon payment, or sell the car before the term finishes. That way then it just clears the finance, and whatever money extra is there, I get back. They wanna know how I bought my car, what deposit I've paid, etc. So right, let's throw this stuff on the screen. So the purchase of my car is?
£558,248.
Right, on the road, that is exactly what I have to pay to drive that car away. We discussed this and I was like, I don't want to pay a stupid deposit, but I'm happy to pay a high enough deposit. So if I do go to sell the car and by some small chance this car loses money, which is highly unlikely for the next year or so, I don't want to be the wrong way around with my finance. When you sell a car and you have to pay money to sell your car, so if your car's worth £200,000 and you owe £250,000 on your car, you're gonna have to give £50,000 over and sell your car at the same time. We don't wanna be wrong way around the finance.
Negative equity. Avoid it at all costs.
Okay, fine. So that's the price of the car. My deposit?
£140,150.
Which leaves a balance of?
£418,098.
So that is what I've borrowed from the finance company?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, and we've done that over what term?
2 years.
So now, at the end of the 2 years, before I give you my monthly payment, at the end of the 2 years, what happens?
You have a balloon payment due of £391,000.
Balloon payment is where they've estimated that car to be worth after 2 years. That's probably a good balloon payment.
A balloon payment will always be a little bit cynical, because if a finance company ever get this car, say if the Yiannimize world ended for whatever reason and they get that car back, they need to get rid of it as quickly as possible, and every car dealer in the world is going to be rubbing their hands together trying to get a deal on it. So they'll always be cynical. What I would say though is, like, in your particular case, it's good that you're amortizing a little bit of capital. The amount of money you're borrowing, the amount you're paying per month, it's nice to know at the end of the agreement you don't still owe what you borrowed in the first place.
Yeah.
Because it's just good. It's a little bit of a mental psychology, I think.
And that's it. And very rarely do I keep my cars for 2 years. Let's be honest. Usually I keep my cars for a year, 18 months, 9 months, and I stick mileage on my cars. As you know, I'm doing the Yiannimize Grand Tour, so there's going to be some serious mileage on that car. Okay, so we've done a 2-year deal. Okay, that's my deposit, and my monthly payment for the 2 years?
£4,095.42. Every one of my competitors is going to be doing the maths on this to reverse engineer your interest rate now to figure out what you got. So.
Are we telling them?
It's a good interest rate.
I don't mind telling them.
8.82.
I think in this day and age, that's not bad.
It's less than what I pay on my car, so it's good
Yeah?
rate. It's a good rate, yeah.
He drives a Veyron. No, he drives a Chiron. That's why.
Yeah, I wish.
Okay, and the interest rate with what the market is now, that's a decent rate.
I think that is competitive, yeah, especially on this size lending. Weirdly, there's only a certain amount of funders available who you could get to this level of lending, and some of them are actually more expensive than the more consumer-based funders who can offer sort of a 7.9, 8.9, and 9.9 at the moment. So, in this day and age, it's a competitive rate.
Also, is it difficult for the funders based on they've got no prior knowledge on this car? Because it's a brand new car, it's just come out, No one knows what this car is going to do in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years. Does that play a part?
Yeah, every funder will have a different opinion on these cars as well. Some of them just like to have a bit more of capital amortization built in anyway. Others, we probably could have gone to another funder who would have put a bigger balloon payment on this, but they wouldn't have got to the interest rate. You may have ended up in a similar position monthly repayment wise, but it would have cost you more in the longer term because the interest rate's higher.
Okay, so if I kept this car for 2 years, I would have that balloon payment, is which what you said.
Yeah.
I know people that only pay the minimum deposit and they just pay interest only based on the car, knowing that the car's not going to depreciate. Do you recommend people to do it this way, or would you say, you know what, repay the loan?
I'd recommend you to do it this way because this fit your circumstances perfectly. So it's all down to the individual and exactly what you're trying to achieve. As long as you can get that point across to whoever's placing your finance, there's enough lenders out there that should be bespoke enough to meet your criteria.
Yeah. So with property, I've got some properties that are interest only and others that are repayment. Obviously with property, we know properties go up in value all the time. So when you do interest only, it's not so bad. With a car, cars depreciate. And usually on cars, I don't do as close to interest only as possible. But on this car, I know I'm very safe because it is an early car and there's not many of them around.
You wouldn't sell it for 585,000 right now, would you?
No.
No, exactly.
No.
So unless you make silly money on it, it's not going anywhere.
I'll be honest, I wouldn't sell it anyway. My relationship with Lamborghini, I don't flip my cars. Lamborghini know what I'm like. Yes, I might sell a car after 6 months, but I've stuck 5,000 miles on it. They're like, yeah, that's definitely not a flip because he's driven it a lot. So I kind of get away with it. People are going to ask, did I buy this car in my personal name or did I buy it in the company name? Now, usually when I buy cars, I buy them in my personal name. However, on this one, because we know how much content we're going to put out, and it is literally, I'm not going to call it a company car, but it is a car that we use for social media, for YouTube, and it is Yiannimize media. So it made perfect sense to put it through the company.
It is a true business asset. It's a little bit of a difficult one to explain it because you're going to have a big smile on your face whilst you're driving it. So it doesn't look like it's a business asset, but it will be.
What are the pros and cons with buying a car in your personal name versus buying it in a company name?
So the majority of the public will be buying a car in their personal name, which means it's going to be a regulated contract, which means the early settlement terms, if you don't run it the full length of the agreement for whatever reason, the early settlement terms are set by the Financial Conduct Authority, not the individual lenders. Basically means it's as fair as possible in order to get out of that contract. It normally means up to 2 months interest. As a high net worth individual or as a business user, you do forfeit your consumer rights. So this is the downside. So technically these lenders, should you not agree it in advance, they can say, well, actually you can pay the full value of the interest that's left on this. So it's up to you to have that conversation as a high net worth individual or as a business to ensure what your early settlement terms are before you enter into that contract. Because that's normally the biggest sticking point. There are other elements to it as well that you need to understand, but that's the question I get asked the most.
So I have an incredible fan base. I have the ones that love me and I love you guys and they support me. And then you got I won't call them haters, but we'll call the people that like to throw little digs in.
Keyboard warriors.
Yeah, there's plenty of things we could call them. I'll ask you a question. They say if you finance a car, can you really afford the car?
If we use your particular case as an example, you got to put £140,000 down in the first place. Putting together £140,000 liquid isn't straightforward in itself. Paying £4,000 a month isn't simple in itself. Like having the liquidity available to do all of that suggests that you've got some sort of financial status. But what would be the benefit of going and selling like a couple of other assets that are yielding you income, whether that be a couple of properties, maybe you've got stocks and shares, that kind of thing? What's the point of liquidating all of that to get an asset when you could just leave it where it is and fund this as well, which is actually going to appreciate in value for a period of time and serves you a purpose as a business, which will make further income?
But usually on a car, it does depreciate. So this is obviously a different situation. But
yeah.
I think you answered that really well. That's going to be really interesting to see the comment section on this and what he says there. So I've got a lot of friends that are very, very wealthy, much more wealthy than me, 10, 15x me. Do wealthy people buy cars this way? Or do they just buy them outright and be like, whatever?
Yeah, like to give you a good example, I had a customer when I worked for a different Italian manufacturer to Lamborghini, and he had an extensive car collection. He funded all of it. He had a credit facility of about £7-8 million quid. And he had £95 million in cash reserves available to him, but he still chose to fund because he's like, well, I think these cars are going up in value, so I want to finance them, use my cash for other stuff. So 95 million quid in the bank, still financed.
I bet you'd still say he's broke though, wouldn't you? And he still couldn't afford it because he financed his cars. Let's say I come to the end of the term of my car And I was like, you know what? I don't want to sell the car. I want to keep the car, but I want to refinance it. How does that work?
Same principles as how we did this one, basically. We just send an application to a funder, whether they're happy to extend the term, might go to a different funder if interest rates have dropped and someone's more competitive. You might decide, yeah, I want to keep it, but actually I want to pay down a lot more. I want to go to 10 grand a month and just own as much of his car as possible for when I do sell it. It's not just cars that come to the end of contract either. You can have people who own their cars outright and then they're like, do you know what, I want to buy some more cars, but I don't want to pay cash for them. Maybe I'll get some money out of this to pay for that one because it's a little bit easier doing it that way. Maybe they're funding a project like restoring a car. Equity release is something that we come across quite a lot.
I did that in 2013. So I bought my Aventador in 2013 and I bought it outright. It was a dream to go to a dealer and buy a car cash. I'd never do it again, but that was the dream. And then I had it for like, I don't know, 6 months, 7 months. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna pull some money out now because it's ridiculous sitting on a 300 grand car back then. So yeah, I totally get that and I totally understand that.
Money went to good use as well. Put it back into the machine.
Yeah, put it back into the machine, make more money. Right, that is the end of this video. Jordan, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Check out RJ Stamford. He's my guy. I've been using him for how many years?
3 or 4?
It was a minute ago, because obviously you've done all the cars at Urban as well, didn't you?
Yeah, he was one of the Urban cars.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want any more finance talk or anything else you want to know or you want me to discuss or talk about or bring someone in with me, let me know. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget, subscribe and hit that like button. It's been a minute. Cheers.